several times to reflect the cost of living and the current market rates for the rent, but the rent in itself has not been reviewed. So that is something that is in the works to help when it comes to housing, at least for civil servants. Now, coming to page 3 of the Daily Nation. This is in regards to missing children once again. There are 2 stories that have been featured here. The agony turns into joy as family is reunited with missing boy. 3-year-old James Gisheru. Month-long anguish turned into unbelievable joy after their son, who went missing on the 22nd of June, was found alive at around Githurai 44. This is the 3-year-old boy who went missing and was finally reunited with his parents. Then there is the disappearance of 2 young girls, twin girls for that matter. 14-year-old, what are their names? Nancy Nyambura and her twin sister Sarah Kayesi, who left their home in Kitengela to attend a church service and have never been found, and this was 8 months ago. 8 months ago. So how their mother has been out just trying to implore to everyone, and especially on the socials, if they have any leads. She is still hopeful that she will find her baby girls alive and well, and she does hope to be reunited with them as soon as possible. So if you have any information about these 2 young girls, that is once again Nancy Nyambura and Sarah Kayesi, they live in Kitengela in Kajiado County. They went missing 8 months ago when they were left their home at around 7 a.m. to attend a church service. If you have any information, maybe you could be able to get in touch with the DCI, because the case has been reported to the DCI to help in finding these girls. Vic.
All right. Okay, so let me give you a look on what's happening on the Star newspaper. Mudavadi, Wetangula, Moi, Kalonzo split on Raila unity bid. Now, technical team tells bosses to retreat and agree on Odinga factor. And they say that there's Musyoka, that's Kalonzo Musyoka, and Musalia Mudavadi insist Odinga should play second fiddle. They are adamant. So that is what's happening there. And food in plenty as Muslims celebrate feast of the sacrifice that happened yesterday, the celebration of Eid al-Adha, which commemorates the story of Prophet Ibrahim's test of faith, where he was commanded by God to sacrifice his son Ismail. All right. So there is this part again. The story of Iraq demands 800,000 shillings to send Kenyan's body home. Lucy Wamboi Nganga went to work in Iraq as a house help, and she died last year. So a Nairobi family is desperate to raise 400,000 shillings to bring the body of their loved one, Lucy Wamboi, home from Iraq, where she worked. Now, the exact amount to transfer the body is $7,000. That is 757,374 shillings. The family has only been able to raise about half of that, that is 400,000 shillings. So if her body is not collected in 6 months, it will be disposed of in Iraq. So this is what is included in the cost of repatriation to Kenya, coffin specialized for international transport, health routes and infections, zinc and sawdust, washing and shrouding. So the family is asking for your help to enable them bring the body of their loved one home. The lady who died way back in last year, she died on December 20th. The last time she talked to her family was December 20th, rather, when she told her family that she was okay. But on December 28th last year, her brother Aaron Nganga received news that his sister had died in her employer's house. There is something that we have been talking about from last week, and Parliament also discussed the matter, and it's about time that the parliamentary committee will be getting more details in a month's time to at least get to the bottom of the matter of Kenyans who go in the Gulf in search of greener pastures. All right. So numbers of medical circumcision inflated inspection confirms Kenya is not doing as well as reported in a voluntary medical male circumcision. Now, the prevalence appears to have been exaggerated every year. Apparently, the wrong modeling tool was used. Researchers say that the mistakes appeared inadvertent. So that's it. The modeling tool used in Kenya reported as much as 100% annual circumcisions in the 10 to 29 age group. The 100% figure sounded highly unlikely. So it brings a lot of some questions in that. All right. So One Kenya Alliance chiefs split on reuniting with Raila. And One Kenya Alliance principals yesterday was split on whether they can reunite with ODM boss Raila Odinga in a formidable force to face Deputy President William Ruto. Now, it has also been established that Ford Kenya leader Moses Wetangula and KANU chief Gideon Moi both agreed that they had no problem teaming up with the former Prime Minister. But, however, signaling deep-seated political rivalry, ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi and his wiper counterpart Kalonzo Musyoka insisted they could only accommodate Raila if he plays second fiddle. But Raila wants to be president. So it is understood the One Kenya Alliance Technical Committee, the think tanks driving the nascent alliance, boldly asked the quartet to retreat and hammer out a deal on the Raila Odinga's question. All right. So this is it. And let me quote what Senator Johnson Sakaja said. Raila Odinga is respectable leader. He has the following, and if indeed they are able to agree on those issues of trust, then it would be good to have him. That's one thing that Jen cannot be avoided. That in the last general election, Raila Odinga got 7-point-something million votes against President Kenyatta 8-point-something million votes.
Literally half, almost
half. If you look at it, given plus or minus, it's almost half the votes cast last year in the last general election. So the question of if One Kenya Alliance unite, will they still garner the 7 million votes against Raila Odinga? So that's one factor that even political pundits say that they have to factor in, Raila Odinga factor, if they are going to go. And, politicians said that like in 2002, when it was Kibaki Tosha,
yes,
it was an alliance which was formed almost 4 months to an election. And we all know what happened. Kibaki Tosha and Kibaki ruled for 10 years.
And when they bring up this question of Raila to play second fiddle, compared or rather pitted against the One Kenya alliance put together, honestly, that is a political battle that we definitely know who's going to win. All of them combined pitted against former premier. He is a force to reckon with when it comes to the political landscape of our country. And asking him to play second fiddle?
Against who? That's the question. Against who?
Yes, that's the main question. But then again, whoever is asking for this second fiddle or rather proposing this second fiddle, you can clearly see he's a team of people, not an individual. So,
and sources said that, Gideon Moi and Moses Wetangula are of the opinion that they can consider the Raila Odinga factor even as they go ahead with that. And Sakaja said that never say never. The future is One Kenya Alliance, yes, and it should embrace Raila Odinga. That is according to Senator Sakaja. Politics. Okay.
The Raila factor is one thing that cannot be overlooked.
All right. So finally on politics, Uhuru's Jubilee suspends coalition talks with ODM. Now, party says that move will enable its strengthen structures, seal internal cracks, and show a public appeal to more bargaining power in the discussions. President Uhuru Kenyatta's now the move will slow down the ongoing discussions between the two parties and consequently halt efforts for an earlier 2022 Uhuru's Raila coalition that is expected to take on Deputy President William Ruto in next year's presidential election. 2 days ago, Jubilee Party met, party officials and MPs, around 16 or thereabout, met at the Jubilee headquarters and agreed moving forward to work together and iron out their internal wrangles that has been causing some cracks in the ruling party. Jen.
Now, as we close this segment of In the Headlines, just to echo one of the stories that was in our GMK news brief, this is in regards to concern as morgues grapple with the rising number of unclaimed bodies. So Kenyatta National Hospital has issued out a notice, 7 days to go and claim the 418 bodies that are at the morgue there. And after this, the expiration of this notice, the bodies will be disposed of in compliance with the COVID-19 protocols. So with that, we want to bring to a close this particular segment. Thank you so much for being with us this far. We have so much more lined up for you, so do stay with us. We'll be right back.
Nissan Serena ndio hii, na unaweza kuwa wewe ndio tunapikia simu. Kodi ya Nissan Serena ni NS, alafu kisha kwenye amount ni 50 bob. Hii Nissan Serena tunakupatia na shilingi 50.
Kujiunga na QuickBid ni rahisi. Enda kwenye M-Pesa, bonyeza paybill, kisha weka business number 4032353. Kwenye account weka kodi ya bidhaa unayotaka na bid yako ya chini zaidi. Kwa mfano TV 16, kisha weka shilingi 20 tu kama idadi yako. Weka bid yako pia kwenye www.quickbid.co.ke. Kumbuka, bid ya chini zaidi ya kipekee ndio hununua. QuickBid, bidhaa bora kwa bei ya chini.
Quiero amarte de una forma diferente, de otro modo.
And may I tell you something? Only if you don't tell anyone.
I won't tell anybody. It's a secret.
No, what you are telling me is a very serious accusation.
I know, but Eloisa and I firmly believe that it is true.
Now Dad will know that you aren't joking.
Of course I'm not joking. I can't fool around now that there is so much at stake. I have to be firm so that Mauro knows how far I can go.
De una forma diferente, de otro modo, nunca igual al de otra gente.
月圆风伴吹散沉香，长门起烟上。
Guards! Send her to death row!
Yes! Uncle, please save me! Moochie Woo is awake! And Yuza has been taken to the palace. Uncle, Father will kill me for everything that I've done later.
I never expected the Chancellor would gather so much gold and jewelry.
This is where it all began. As the mother of broadcasting in Kenya, you can trust KBC to bring you authentic news and programs to your living room. As KBC, we take pride in our unrivaled heritage as Kenya's trusted national broadcaster. Commanding over 92% digital television signal coverage of our country, 23 radio services that cut across our entire language spectrum, a national, regional and international digital presence backed by the most experienced and top-notch broadcast professionals in the industry.
A very good evening to you.
The new look Kenya Broadcasting Corporation is truly ahead of the pack. Turn to the mother of broadcasting in Kenya for stories that resonate with our identity, our aspirations as a people united in purpose. Real stories of hard work, of passion, of creativity, of big dreams. Stories that cement our nationhood. Stories that bring us together as one. We take pride in our shared heritage and destiny. KBC. Informing, educating and entertaining Kenyans as one nation. KBC. Kenya's listening. Kenya's watching.
On this week's episode of Zurura, we head to Kenya's backyard to visit our very own Wild West. Then it's off to visit one of East Africa's most beautiful tribes who show us a thing or two about looking good. Then buckle up, lean back and get yourself ready to be whisked across one of the best viewpoints Kenya has to offer. That's all coming right up on Zurura, Find Your Adventure, only on KBC.
Our debate here at this particular morning, and now let's shift gears and talk matters education. It's important to talk about education, and let's see how it's going to pan out. Now, students are out, kids are out of school for their short-term holidays, but then that does not make education to stop going on. And let's talk about education matters right now. And with me, I'm joined by Gilbert Ngaira, who is the representative of Their World Kenya. All right, if I got it right. And I have got Dr. Moma Teresa Ocharo, who is a senior lecturer at the Kenyatta University, joining me so that we talk about matters education. We all know education shapes life. So they say a child who is not educated is not educated, right, Daktari?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. And thank you for giving us this opportunity.
Karibuni sana. Let's start by talking about, start this discussion by talking about ECD, first of all.
Okay.
ECD, for those people who do not know what ECD is all about, we went to nursery school, pre-unit, kindergarten, and what have you. How important is that in the formation of a child's education lifestyle?
Thank you so much for this opportunity. And I want to say, when we talk about early childhood development,
yes,
which we normally shorten as ECD, we tend to liken it to pre-primary education.
Yes.
But when we are talking about early childhood development, we are focusing on a child right from conception through birth up to around 8 years after birth.
Yes.
And that is a child who is in grade 3. So all these years, those are the early childhood development years.
Yeah.
The early childhood development years are very critical because this is the time when children form the foundation in life in terms of development, in terms of attaining the social skills that they require, acquiring language, and also in terms of laying a foundation for learning. And this is the time when parents, caregivers, and all actors around the child play a critical role to nurture this child, to ensure that he has a conducive environment that can enhance development. So that is early childhood development.
Yes.
But also, we talk about pre-primary education.
Yeah.
This is a child who is 4 years or 5 years, and he has entered pre-primary school now to start learning. But learning starts even earlier because the child acquires the tools he requires, for example, the social skills, learning how to take turns, how to share with others, acquiring the basic language, which he or she will use when he or she enters school.
Yeah.
So all these are very critical in a child to be able to to thrive in the environment.
But Doctor, there is that disparity when you look at the kids in some parts of the country. Compare the public primary schools vis-a-vis the private primary schools. The level of of foundation of the ECD, somehow, there's that bit of disparity. How can that gap be bridged so that there's that a bit of uniformity in terms of ECD moving forward?
I don't want to compare public and private, but I would compare children from well-off families with those from disadvantaged backgrounds, because we have even private schools that are performing poorly, maybe in the informal sector, in the informal settlement, where they do not get what they are supposed to get. Children from well-off families are advantaged because their parents are able to provide the basic needs they require to support the learning. For example, getting them the learning materials like books, like taking them to places where they can acquire more knowledge and information. Unlike children from disadvantaged backgrounds, those who are in the rural, those who are from informal settlements, those who are in refugee camps, who lack such environment. So that is the comparison I can give, because I cannot say that children who are in the private schools are performing better than those in the public. We have public schools which are in good environments and they are supporting their children. So I would rather consider children based on their background, where they come from and the support they need. And a lot of attention where we should focus it to ensure that children, all children in Kenya are able to acquire quality early childhood to be able to get the firm foundation for future learning.
Thank you. Gilbert, there is an event, Global Partnership on Education Summit, coming up. How is it going to be important on ECD in Kenya?
Actually, just to match it with what Dr. has said. When we talk of all the element of quality and the different type of children coming from different backgrounds, everything narrows down to resources. And it's all about resources that ensure that our children get the best education as far as learning is concerned. And this is why the Global Education Summit is happening, having been organized by the Global Partnership for Education globally, just to mobilize resources to ensure that more resources is directed towards education. So this is a global summit that as a country we are privileged to have our president as one of the co-hosts, together with the Prime Minister Boris of the UK. And the whole idea is to mobilize around $5 billion that can go towards education. And this is purely, they're looking at up to supporting around 90 countries globally from the developing world on education matters.
When you talk of education in Kenya, it's one of the most advanced perhaps in the region. Just the other day, Professor George Magoha said that there's still an amount that has been released for secondary education. Right now we have free primary education in the country, and when you look at that gap that has been bridged, many students now are able to go to school. How is this summit going to be much important locally to our students when it comes up and this amount is raised?
I think there are two things that we need to look at. There is the whole idea of increased accessibility, but there's also an idea of quality, deliverability. So what we are asking is, are we going to measure the success of our education based on the number of children that attend school, or are we going to measure it according to the quality of learners that exit the institutions? And if we are looking at the two, there are many other factors that come around. There'll be the whole idea of the free primary, the feeding programs in school, for example. How are they effective? So that we are talking about nutrition here. Then there'll be many other factors. There's the teachers and how they are paid, and how which affects how they deliver their services. So if we are able to mobilize enough resources through the global summit, and ensure that we can be able to take care of these other factors that surround the holistic education and development. It's going to assure us quality deliverability at the end of the day.
Yes.
But until we do that, we'll still have a lot of challenges that we'll need to face. Yeah.
Maybe to add on
yes,
to what
please.
he has said. He talked of about 90 countries that are going to be supported.
Yeah.
It's also important to note here that we have around 80% of the children from low and middle income countries who need to be supported. For example, globally we have, like, if I may come to the early childhood level, we have like 175 million who are not accessing school. And if I may even come back down to our situation in Kenya, we have a net enrollment of around 77%, which means around 23 to 25% of children are not in school. It is even worse in arid and semi-arid areas of Kenya, where, for example, in Mandera we have only 18% of these children who are attending school. So when we are talking about resources coming to education, how much of that is going to pre-primary education? Because without resources, we will not be able to talk about quality early childhood education. And in fact, what we are pushing for, and it is good that our president is co-hosting this summit with the Prime Minister UK. We want to have our president be the first African president who is going to dedicate 10% of all the resources that are allocated to the education sector. Well, it is one thing to get resources to the education sector in Kenya, but it's another to ensure that these resources, how much is going to secondary. You know, in Kenya we tend to put more attention to primary and secondary. Why? Because that is the time when students are doing exams, and that is the time when we celebrate because they have performed well. The same for high school, and we tend to push a lot of resources there. Currently, Kenya is spending around 1.8% of the educational resources in early childhood. When this money is given to the county government, for your information, we are all aware that pre-primary education was devolved to the county government. And therefore, when this devolved function, the funds, resources that support it, including technical, vocational, and all that, how much is going to pre-primary? And when it goes to pre-primary, how much is given to different activities that support quality early childhood? For example, do we have a framework which states that 20% of this, for example, I've seen when I was flipping through some of the counties how much they give to early childhood. I could see 500 million, maybe 200, you know. But out of this 200 million, what percentage is going to infrastructure? Because many counties tend to push resources towards infrastructure. They forget about the feeding program of these children, because we have children from disadvantaged backgrounds. How can county government put measures in place to ensure that every pre-primary has a feeding program? So what percentage goes to feeding program? They are supposed to pay teachers, employ and pay teachers. How much, what percentage is going to payment of teachers? And the whole issue of teachers is another issue that we really need to look into to ensure that we have qualified teachers. I'm aware we have had some service TORs for the teachers, terms of reference or terms of service for the teachers, which have not been implemented. Who are these pre-primary school teachers teaching in our public schools? So we cannot talk about quality, we cannot talk about teaching learning materials if there are no resources. But these resources should be directed to the right activities.
I'll come into that, because the whole issue of education being devolved, we've seen teachers going on strike, for delocalization, for example. They're talking about delocalization. They want ECD teachers to be more empowered. But is the government taking that more seriously? But I'll come to that one shortly, Daktari.
Thank you.
Gilbert, what's the Kenya's role in the upcoming summit?
As I mentioned, I think the greatest thing we have is actually having our president as one of the co-hosts to this summit. it says a lot about us as a nation and our international relations and partnership with our counterparts.
Yes.
Our main role is actually just to be among the main facilitators to mobilize resources. And remember, we are co-hosting for mobilizing resources for 90 other countries.
Yes.
So that's a very, very special role.
And why Kenya? Because when you talk about UK and Kenya has been picked, to be the center of that summit, that says a lot.
It says a lot. Yeah. It says a lot. And of course, that's why I mentioned the whole idea of our international relations and partnerships. Yeah. I'm sure very closely with our good friend Manoa Esipisu.
Yes.
We have been able to push a lot of discussions around education, and this places us in a very good place to ensure that we mobilize enough resources for this nation.
And Kenya enjoys that bilateral kind of relationship with the UK.
Totally.
When you talk about exchange programs, most of the students in the UK, most of them are in Kenya almost yearly, quarterly, and even the British soldiers. They have their camps here.
Yeah.
So Kenya is a strategic place to have that particular point.
Very true.
When you talk about ECD, Daktari, you talked about it's a devolved unit, ECD.
Yes. Yeah.
But are the ECD teachers getting the exact and requisite requirements or materials for them to start this kind of foundation? Because that's the initial formation of every child's education system. Are they getting the best?
I think in the first place, our pre-primary school teachers have been disadvantaged for many years.
Why?
Even with the devolution happening, we have had counties hiring. At some point when they had issues with the Teacher Service Commission, they started playing with terms where they are saying, oh, they are caregivers, or they are doing what.
Yes.
So that is disadvantaging them because we have trained them. Number two, I don't think the county government who have been mandated to hire pre-primary school teachers are doing a good job. Why? Because we have graduate teachers. We are talking of giving them a good foundation or a firm foundation. We expect the many graduates we have trained from the university to be hired and given good terms just like their counterparts in the Teacher Service Commission in primary, secondary, because they have a bachelor's degree in early childhood, just like them. Number two, I don't think many counties have employed teachers who have those qualifications. Number two, I know the teachers, like now we are implementing the competence-based curriculum. The pre-primary school teachers, we have not seen them are being trained or inducted like their counterparts in the primary. So that is disadvantaging them. The other reason, payment has been so poor because out of the around 92,000 pre-primary school teachers, only 53% are hired by the county government, serving a population of 2.7 million who are employed, who are enrolled in pre-primary school.
That number is completely, unstable.
Yes. And then when we come to the teacher-child ratio, we have in our public schools one teacher for on average 37 children, while in the private school we have one teacher for 21 children. But the pre-primary education policy standard guidelines requires that one teacher to have 25 children. But you see, this is on average. If you went out there to different schools, you will realize that some teachers have like 50, 80, 100 children per one teacher. So what are we saying then? Our pre-primary school teachers do not have an environment where they can be able to give the children the foundation they require.
Right.
Yes, because of all those factors and also lack of teaching learning materials and poor remuneration. All this will impact negatively.
Just to bring Gilbert on that, Their World, a global charity organization that you represent, you are running a pilot program in 4 different counties.
Yes.
What is the progress?
Well, it's not a blanket.
Right.
Yeah, different counties, as Daktari mentioned, we have counties that will progress fast. We have counties that will lag behind. And all this will depend on very many factors.
Yes.
Yeah, so as we are looking at early childhood education, we have been able to engage with a few counties. And we have counties like Kwale, which is one of the best performing counties we have in the nation. And I think this I'll owe it to the governor, because governor, who was once before was my colleague in the development space, actually realized that huge gap and captures all this and put it at the forefront of his agendas to ensure that they improve literacy in the county. We have other counties that are still lagging behind, and especially, as Daktari mentioned, if you look at counties like Mandera, the northeastern part of the country. Yes. And this is purely because of many other factors beyond even the budget itself. So different counties are performing differently, and purely it's because of either their exposure, the understanding of early childhood education. What we found very interesting is when we talk about early childhood education, everyone thinks about this facility, the structure.
Do people even receive it in the first place?
The structure is there, because I dare say, I think sometimes you also want to look at what is politically correct. Because when you are in the community, Mwananchi asks the MCA, for example, what have you done for us? This MCA will go and establish a structure and call it an ECD. And so that when everyone is passing, they can see he built that for us.
And there's a billboard.
And there's a billboard there saying he did this. But there are those soft issues that you can't see. The teachers training, the school feeding programs. Issues of wash. Those things you can't really see them. So who addresses them? So when you're coming to look at these other important factors that ensures we have a holistic child development sector, centers, we miss out. And so most of the parameters we have is actually based on what is seen. Yet what we are missing is what is unseen, and that is what is important and need to be budgeted for and focused for. And that is what their world does. Their world is purely to look into the issue of supporting education through the most vulnerable children across the world. And Kenya happens to be one of the targeted countries that we are looking at, working very closely with both the national government, the county government, the Senate, the Standing Committee on Education at the Senate, just to ensure that we can mobilize enough resources, as Daktari mentioned. It's one thing to ask for 5 billion for the 90 countries. It's another thing for you to break it down. You know, the way you have a budget at home
and implement it.
Someone is paid $2,000 a month or 200K, and when you get to your house, you have to organize within a budget to make sure that it fits all your needs. That is exactly what we are talking about.
Absolutely.
So if you go to one county, you'll find a block and it will read 500 million towards ECD. But if you went breaking it down, most of this money will just be on a structure. And we're asking ourselves, is that enough to ensure that we prepare our kids to join the primary schools and giving them a better ground when they start?
Perfect. Daktari, Gilbert has said a very important point here. When you talk of ECDs, the teachers, when you find that most kids happen to go to school because of the incentives, call it, quote unquote, for those people who are in the past, they used to see maziwa ya Nyayo. So kids will go to school knowing that every Monday, every Wednesday, and every Friday, there will be a truck of maziwa ya Nyayo given to kids. But at this particular point, the government introduced feeding program. Has that really enhanced ECDs? Because most of the kids from these disadvantaged backgrounds, you find that most of them do not even go to school because either they don't have food back at home, some of them do not even have a proper school uniform. How is this GPE, the summits, going to, the fund going to assist, for example, the less privileged societies and even enrollment?
I think to start with, our Constitution, Article 53, is clear that every child has a right to free and compulsory basic education, and that has also been reiterated in the Early Childhood Development and Education Act of 2021, and even the policies that support early childhood. These funds can support all the children if, for example, number one, our president commits that 10% will go towards early childhood. And what that means is to have, just like when we talk of free primary school or free secondary school, we have capitation for every child. Where we say like 3,000 will be going to every child. That means if a school has 100 children times 3,000, that is the amount that will go to that school. And then there is a breakdown of these 3,000 shillings. How much is going, for example, teaching learning materials, feeding program, payment of the teachers, and all that. In that way, we will have uniformity. Every child will be motivated to go to school. I'm aware that some children from poor backgrounds are not able to go to pre-primary because the parents are required to pay some levies to be able to pay this 47% I talked about of the teachers who are not paid by the county government. So without, we are advocating for funding at different levels. From the global level, we are saying we need money into our basket of education. And in our national level, we are saying, yes, thank you for giving us this amount of money. But at the early childhood level, we want 10% of those resources to go there. And when the 10% is given to the county government, we will go to those county government and we say, it should go with a framework, identifying how much should go where. Then we should go to the county level and ask that governor, you got 10% of the education resources. How much has gone to payment of teachers? What teachers have you employed? We cannot talk of quality education if our county governments are not going to employ qualified teachers.
And what is the progress on that?
At the progress, I may say from the statistic level that some counties have this 53%. If you went to different counties, you will have, like, at least some counties have ensured they have one count employed teacher, and then the others are not employed while they are teaching, which means who is paying this one? The parents are contributing to pay. So that means some parents who are not able to, either their children will be sent home, so they will not concentrate to learn. So that is how I'm looking at it. So we are advocating at different level. At the global level, let our president fight the war. At the national level, education funds, let it be broken down to ECD level. At the county level, let us also hold the county government. Now, there is something important that I really want to say here. Before devolution came, we had a smooth transition of early childhood from the national level to the grassroots level, where we had the national early childhood education, which was at KICD. And then in every district, we had the district center for early childhood with the program officers who could oversee things at the ground. But with the devolution, the early childhood was thrown to the county. At the national level, we did not have any structure. Who is overseeing this? When the pre-primary education policy of 2017 and the guidelines 2018 came into place, they tried to come up with this structure. Now we have the National Early Childhood Education Committee at the Ministry of Education. Then we are supposed to have the county early childhood education. That's according to that policy. But at the county level, we have not. At the national, I know we have. Once we have this structure, then we will be happy to know that the Ministry of Education at the national level is able to monitor and oversee how certain things are happening in early childhood at the grassroots level. And hold the county governments accountable.
Doctor, I think this is just a topic that we'll have to get enough time on its own, because education affects all of us, including you, Doctor. All right, but maybe as you wrap up, before get into that, what is their world doing to get that fund so that ECD can be well oiled? As you respond to that, as we come to an end as well.
So maybe before I come to that, let me just add on something. So there's a global parameter that has been set towards the budgeting, whereby for all the money, the national budget for each country, at least 20% be allocated towards education. So as Dr. mentioned, what we are saying is, of this 20%, we want 20% of this 10% of this 20% allocated towards now the ECD, the early childhood education, because that is very important. And that is what their world is doing. Their world has joined forces with many other global partners just to ensure that the early childhood education element has been well captured. Because many times we talk about education and we forget the lower level.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yes.
So so the idea is just to bring back the whole concept and ensure that it is very important. When you lose them at that age of ECD, you've lost them. So we struggle studying up class 1, 2, 3, but we lost everything before. So what are we saying? We are saying we need to allocate more resources at the foundation level so that we have stronger children growing up. And of course, if we go into economics, it translates to many other things. Yeah, because if you have people that don't have a proper grounding in terms of education, you can imagine what population you'll be holding.
Wow. Okay. I think we just have to leave it at that point. But promise me that next time we are just going to create more time. We have the summit coming up on 28th and 29th here in Nairobi.
Yes.
It's called the Global Partnership on Education Summit that brings together the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson and President Uhuru Kenyatta, who is the host of that summit. It will be interesting to see how it's going to pan out, and of course the issue of ECD. Dr. has said that it's important. We cannot just wish it away. All right.
Maybe to say something.
Yes, in 20 seconds. My director is on my neck.
Another thing I want to say, in October we are holding a national early childhood conference from 25th to the 28th. And I'm inviting as many people to register for that conference, because this is where we will have conversations about children.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'll have to let you go. Thank you so much for joining us. Good Morning Kenya does not stop there. We're taking a break, and when we come back, Jen, we'll pick it from there. We'll be right back.
Nissan Serena ndio hii, na unaweza kuwa wewe ndio tunapikia simu. Kodi ya Nissan Serena ni NS, alafu kisha kwenye amount ni 50 bob. Hii Nissan Serena tunakupatia na shilingi 50.
Kujiunga na QuickBid ni rahisi. Enda kwenye M-Pesa, bonyeza paybill, kisha weka business number 4032353. Kwenye account weka kodi ya bidhaa unayotaka na bidi yako ya chini zaidi. Kwa mfano TV 16, kisha weka shilingi 20 tu kama idadi yako. Weka bidi yako pia kwenye www.quickbid.co.ke. Kumbuka, bidi ya chini zaidi ya kipekee ndio hununua. QuickBid, bidhaa bora kwa bei ya chini.
Mauna
alikuita kuna wewe ndio unanisubiria na kutia mafuta sasa bado una nini? Una nini? Tafadhali hizo pesa zote uzitoa wapi?
634. Kama si manjaliwa sioni ni kwa nini tujisumbue bure.
Wakili, chochote utakachofanya utajua, hata ukawa kwenye shimo lipi.
And more, and I love you, girl. Kwa mchumba wangu tulipendana kama nyama choma, alibahatika kwenda ng'ambo, chuo kikuu kwenda kusoma, miaka 3 kule Japan, kusamea udaktari, sela wapi.
What does this number mean to you? Leader, a winner, or just a number? To us, it means freshness, boldness, vibrancy, and heritage. That's why at KBC Channel 1, we make it easier for you to pop up your family entertainment to a fresh, exciting, and colorful.
George!
send her to death row.
Yes! Uncle, please save me. Mu Qingwu is awake, and Yuza has been taken to the palace. Uncle, Father will kill me for everything that I've done later.
I never expected the Chancellor would gather so much gold and jewelry.
与君一别两苍茫，别远风伴吹散沉香，江南青烟上，抓一味当归入药汤，相思泪水。
Quiero amarte de una forma diferente, de otro modo.
And may I tell you something? Only if you don't tell anyone.
I won't tell anybody. It's a secret.
No, what you are telling me is a very serious accusation.
I know, but Eloisa and I firmly believe that it is true.
Now Dad will know that you aren't joking.
Of course I'm not joking. I can't fool around now that there is so much at stake. I have to be firm so that Mauro knows how far I can go.
De una forma diferente, de otro modo, nunca igual al de otra gente.
Maunan.
Alikuita kuna. Wewe ndio unaniambia usilie na kutia mafuta sasa. Bado una nini? Una nini? Tafadhali, hizo pesa zote uzitoa wapi?
634. Kama si majaliwa si majaliwa. Sioni ni kwa nini tujisumbue bure.
Wakili. Chochote utakachofanya nitajua. Hata ukawa kwenye shimo lipi.
Welcome back. We are glad you are still with us. In case you are just joining us, karibu tena sana. This is Good Morning Kenya. I am Jane Mamboy. Glad you have chosen to start your morning with us. And you are right in time for our next conversation. But remember, you can be a part of these conversations. Questions, comments, clarification, anything that you may be needing in regards to the conversations that we get to have here, we welcome you to contribute to them using the hashtag Good Morning Kenya on Twitter at KBC Channel 1. Ever remains to be the official station handle. My handle is at Jane Mamboy across all the social media platforms. Much love going out to everyone who has already tuned in. Dan Chebi, I see you. Richard Mohia Boro na kuona hapo. Let me also see at Instagram Alfiteen. Thank you for tuning in. Juma CJ, we appreciate you. Jared Omboy, MW Ken Kiptanui, William Waburi, Amerix, thank you so much for tuning and retweeting all our feed. Moses Wagora, thank you so much. Westlands Avenue Consult, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate all of you who have already tuned in. Keep talking to us. Check in. We'd love to know where you're watching us from, because as we always say, Kenya's listening, Kenya is watching right here on Good Morning Kenya. Now, we get to the next conversation, and this is about the construction industry. Many a times you get to that point in life where you want to venture into the real estate sector for business or for residential purposes. And most of the time, we never have the technical expertise as a common mwananchi to know what we need to know when we're getting into the whole mjengo sector. And that is what we want to talk about today, to just help you understand the basics when it comes to construction, what you need to expect, what is the actual path and the professionals that you need to be working with, as opposed to you being in charge of your mjengo, in as much as we cannot help ourselves. Today we're going to be learning from the professionals, and we have 3 gentlemen with us in studio this morning to help us with this conversation. I'll start with the gent to my extreme right. He is John Moneki, who is an architect. Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
At the center, we have Alfred Aluvala, who is a quantity surveyor. Good morning, Alfred.
Morning, and thank you for having me today.
Karibu sana, thank you for making time to be with us. And finally, to my closest right, we have Evans Goro, who is a structural and a civil engineer. Good morning.
Good morning.
Karibu sana. All right.
To be and see that the people can learn something about how they live.
Absolutely. We never know how those structures come up. We just see a skeleton, a roof, grills, glasses, painting, finishing. We'll get you to the details. But before we even get to this conversation, I was just looking at some stats, and this is a report that was put together by the Kenya construction industry, dated the 8th of March 2021. Just looking at 2019, the construction industry contributed 5.6% of the GDP of Kenya, which translates to about 222,000 employment opportunities for Kenyans. And also looking at the larger East African space, there are 43 grand structures, and 11 of them are in Kenya. That just goes to show you how much the construction industry has a fortitude, and especially to the Kenya's economy. But let me start with you, Engineer Gora. You know, we've had you before, and still talking about the construction industry in Kenya, your personal view on how we are doing as a country when it comes to the construction and building industry as a whole, generally speaking.
Well, touching on the tips of everything, the construction industry has a big hold on Kenyans and their lives. But the Kenyans do not know how to let it work for them. One, because there are so many middlemen who come in and purport cartoon play with a developer who has the money. So by things not working right, the developer who has the money becomes a big loser. So here we like those who would like to have space usable to use the proper channels to do it right and get more benefit than so-called letting the fundi do what he did in the neighbor's compound.
Yes. Nataka kama hile. Let me come to you, Alfred. You know, just looking at the construction space in Kenya, how would you characterize it from what you have seen in your line of duty?
Construction industry is a very vital factor within the economy.
Yes.
It employs very many people. If you just pass across near a construction, you'll see the number of people involved in putting it up.
Yes.
And if you put up your house, you are putting up probably a masonette. The number of people who will come there will be very many. The professionals will be involved. When you pay that professional, he has to go and pay other bills, including the house girl. The house girl will go and take money up country to go and pay other people.
Bills,
So it is a multiply effect, and across the board. So when we come up with construction, it helps very many people, and it spurs up the economy, and the economy becomes very vibrant.
Absolutely. And also I'd like to get your thoughts on the same, John. You're just looking at the construction industry, the building industry in Kenya, our cultures, and your interaction with the people and other professionals. How would you describe or characterize it?
It's very interesting. If you look at how we grew up, I'm sure everyone has an experience with a building somewhere. And as we are growing up, you'll find that most of us saw buildings just coming up. You know, you just take a fundi, kanyaga steps, and, just do your steps and put up a building. And I think that's where most of us think that a building is something easy to put up. But as time goes on, we've seen Kenyans actually embracing the use of professionals gradually. We are not there yet, but gradually
we are making strides.
We are making strides. Yes. We still have a challenge we're still not yet there where people understand the role of an architect, the role of a quantity surveyor, the role of professionals in the build industry, but we are making progress, and we wish to, actually that's one of the reasons why we are here, to enlighten the public on the role of the various professions and the importance of having professionals in their various constructions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that you've brought out the whole architect bit, which is your area of specification.
Yes.
Because just speaking from personal experience, I remember when my father was putting up our home, and I was part of the drawing process. I want my closet to be like this, my room to be like this. And when the blueprint came, and finally when the skeleton was coming up, I was like, it wasn't like this, and you see, that is something that so many people do. You just put up a rough sketch of what you want your house to look like and expect it to be like that to the T's. But understanding your role as an architect, maybe help us better understand why, as an architect, you are needed there to ensure that the structure that is put on paper is what that can actually be put up on the ground, and why our specifications sometimes might not be as practical as we want them to be.
Yeah, you're touching on the role of an architect, basically, and the role of professionals in the construction industry.
Professional architect.
A professional architect. There is no other architect. There's just a professional architect. The others are quacks, for lack of a better word.
Not the self-proclaimed ones.
Yes. So, an architect is a designer. He's a guy who understands and plans. Will understand the built, the spaces that you're looking at. He will come. It's just the same way you're saying. Put a sketch down, then call in the guy, the architect, to put your thoughts into proper working spaces, a proper working building. So what does an architect do? He will come in first, understand the client's brief, and of course now design based on what you need, and go on the ground and understand the surrounding. There's so many other factors that you look at. There's the ground, neighboring activities, the neighboring structures. It will go down to a small thing like the sun path.
Imagine that.
Ventilation. Small factors that you will think is just a matter of giving spaces, and but an architect understands the effect of the environment into the space. Why you don't need light during the day. If it's a house, he'll know how to position all those factors. So the architect the architect will come in and put that on paper. That's why maybe when you're doing it, it's just a layman's way of saying, I want my toilet here, I want this here, I want my kitchen here, but you'll come in and marry all those factors, all those demands and all those desires into something that is workable.
I think that workable bit is where most of us struggle with, because if it doesn't come out like this, you're not doing your job, and we're quick to blame you.
If I can just add on.
Yeah, sure.
What my colleague is saying is, you come with a story. I want my house to look like this. Probably you went to your friend's house called Anne, and Anne gave you a description. You saw it and you wanted something like that. But because Anne's house looks like that because it is at a particular place. But when you ask Maniki to come in and give a design, it can't be exactly like Anne because your environment is slightly different. So once it is different, so he is trained to twist your house to fit. It's like going to a shop. Do you want to buy a ready-made dress, or do you want it fitted?
To be tailor-made,
So that's now. So they want to tailor-make your house. So you come and give him a story. He changes your story into a drawing, so that it can be done.
Absolutely. Now, we'll be getting some of the challenges that you get to deal with, and especially when it comes to convincing the client that this is not possible here. There's a slope, you can't have this kind of house. And we'll be getting to those challenges in a bit, but let me just come back to you, Alfred. Understanding the role of a quantity surveyor when it comes to the whole structural and construction bit of it all. Help us better understand that.
Who is a quantity surveyor? A quantity surveyor is the legal and financial advisor to the whole team. When I call a team, we are talking of the client, you who is putting up the building, my colleagues, the architect, the engineer, because when we come in, we are now going to tell them concerning the amount of money. Let me put in the layman's language, the amount of money you are going to use into what Mwaniki has designed. Mwaniki, you have given a very elaborate story.
Yes.
I want a house that looks like this. I want to place things like this, and so on and so forth. Mwaniki will put it down, and then he'll bring it to me. Alfred, how much does it cost? And then there is the way we have been trained from the university. We are trained how to compute and calculate the figures, and then we come and tell you this is how it has been done. Mwaniki will have designed that building. He'll have given to Engineer Goro to come up with his structural design that comes in, and then they will all come back to me concerning the costs, the money bit. So I will now tell them, you guys, what you have designed, this amount is coming to, say, 100 million. You say, no, me, I had only 85 million. Then we shall come back and sit down and come back and what we call value engineering.
Okay.
By that one, what can we adjust to fit in the 85? Now, that becomes my role.
Okay.
That is the construction, the money bit. The legal bit is now the contract. The quantity surveyor will come and advise you the contract you should use. Is it open tender? Is it single sourcing? Is it whatever? So we shall tell you, for this project yours, the best way to do it is this particular way.
Okay.
Among many other things.
So it's actually in the name, the quantity.
Yes, exactly.
The first bit of it, at least as per what I'm understanding.
Yes.
You help in understanding the quantity of what will be needed to bring that structure to life.
Basically surveying everything, that the quantities that have been put together, and then we compute them and quantify and advise.
All right. Then therein you mentioned Engineer Goro comes in as the civil and structural engineer. What is the role, first of all, when it comes to the whole construction bit, and why is it important to have an engineer on ground for any constructions that may be looking to be put up?
Yeah, now I will start from where the architect was.
Yes.
The architect has developed space the way you want it. But for this space to be usable, you will need the engineers. There's structural, there's civil, there's electrical, there's mechanical. And you surely do know you need the water, you need to dispose the waste, you need the building that is not collapsing. So for the architectural requirements to take place, you will need the engineers to come into place and provide those designs that will make that space usable to your requirement, the developer.
Yes.
And with all those in controls, we are also in touch with the quantity surveyor to look at the costs. Just like saying, I want a 43-inch TV, somebody else says, I want a 54-inch TV. It depends on your demand and your financial capacity.
Yes.
That's where the engineer now comes into actual play. Before we get to the site, we work on papers. But of late, we have seen developers of what they call family houses. They go to building before they get a drone.
Yes.
And that is a very risky business. It is ongoing. I don't know why it is happening, but it is very good for Kenyans to know that any building put up anywhere on the soils of Kenya must be approved by that local authority. And that local authority will approve it because the architects and the engineers have participated in it. And when we call an architect or an engineer, these are registered people with a practicing license.
Yes.
If you call yourself an architect or an engineer and you don't have that capacity, the laws of Kenya are very clear. Chapter 525 and chapter 430 will tell you how long you will go into jail by using that word, which is that title that is not yours.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, let me come back to you, Alfred. You know, I like the fact that you've brought in the whole registration process of the professionals that are required in this industry. But looking at the informal sector, which is sadly where we get so many people going about giving themselves these titles, putting up structures and akuja na chalk and nachora when it's supposed to be, and construction starts when there isn't actually the blueprints from the architect. When it comes to sort of streamlining the informal sector and consequently helping bring down the number of buildings that we see collapse, what do you think can be done to just tame the informal sector and all the quacks that are thriving in that sector specifically?
The government comes in, because any construction that takes place anywhere is supposed to be known by the government. Because if somebody, say an Onyango, wants to put up a structure in an informal sector, and that particular person has to get permission, has to get approval, and we have got people who look into these things, who move around checking on every construction. Take an example. Even if you stay anywhere, say Buruburu, and you start constructing at 8 in the morning, by 8:30 or 9, somebody will be knocking there. Let me look at your papers. And these people, the county government people, are always moving around.
Yes.
Now, you are not supposed to continue unless you prove that you have the approvals. So if the things go on, it means somebody somewhere just closed his eye. He allowed something to go on. He has allowed quacks to thrive, and they have not stopped them. The right person will be stopped, but people who are crooked, who may want to use other crooked means, they will cut corners and continue. The buildings you see collapsing is because somebody somewhere just cut corners. He did not want to follow the right route, and when he was asked, he talked the language that wanted to. Remember when we had vehicles competing in Naivasha? I don't know whether you heard of it. There was this Ugandan who came in and was asked, how did you reach here? He said, I talked the language the people on the border understood, and they allowed me in. So that language where people, wrong language that people are talking, they allow many things to go wrong, and then the buildings collapse.
Okay. Now, let me come to you, John, and talk a bit about the whole coming up with the blueprint for the house, the structural, at least the pictorial bit of it all. Maybe you could give us the proper terminologies. I'm also here to learn. And from an interaction I had with a few persons before this, there was one who was saying that the structurals designs that you come up with are quite expensive, and especially for residential purposes. What informs the financial bit of what you put together as an architect?
Before the design process starts, I have to pick what they have in mind together with the budget. When I go back to the drawing board, whatever I'm going to design has to be informed by the budget. One of the challenges we have nowadays is the client will want the designs first.
Yes.
Then once you hit them with the figures, they're like, now let's go back. I need to chop it, this chop is, downscale.
Yes.
But it would be so much helpful to us if you started with the information about how much you're willing to budget for. The issue of cost, I don't know where it's coming on when you say the structure is expensive. Comparing to what? What are you comparing it to decide that it's expensive?
Or is it the fees?
I think that
is
was,
it the
of course,
fees?
you sell the design of what you put up.
Yes. Basically, we are selling the design to you. You need to understand, most of the guys, actually Kenyans need to understand that involving professionals in the build industry is not an expensive affair. Actually, having not involved them, the after effects later will be more expensive than you'd have rather involved them from the word go. And yes, you're coming to a professional, you have to pay the professional. You have to pay the professional for you to get a product that you will actually appreciate afterwards.
All right.
There are two ways to go about it. Avoid using the professional, you pay for it, and you'll have a shoddy project or shoddy product. But the moment you involve for professionals, eventually you have a product that you'll be satisfied with at the end of it all. I don't know if I've answered your question.
Absolutely. Yes, you can add on to that.
When you touch money, you are touching me. When you touch money, you are touching the area where my heartbeat is.
Yes.
Now, when you say the design is expensive, actually, your mouth is the one which is expensive.
Because you are speaking from what I told you.
Exactly. Okay. You have said, I want a house the lounge should be like this. I want my kitchen to appear like this. I want the worktop on top of it to be what finish top, very expensive, and the shelves to be like this. All those things you are talking about is money. So whatever you are saying, what you would want in your building, I want my bedroom to be this size, small or big. I want the ceiling to be gypsum and not blockboard, whichever way you want. All that is money. So when after you have spoken all that story, Mark, you are saying it, and the architect is not drawing, he is writing down what he says, a brief. What he called brief. You are briefing him. You are telling him, okay, I want this, and he's writing. When he goes to this office, then he translates what you briefed him to be into a drawing. And then that drawing is now what we price.
Yes.
So actually that design is you. It's not even him.
It is not the architect that is expensive.
Yes, it's you who said, I want this. So he has told you, okay, is this what you wanted? And then you say, exactly, yes, this design is what I wanted. So when I cost it, actually, I'm just costing what you said.
All right. Now, speaking of costings, let's get a bit practical.
Yes.
For someone who's looking to put up a home.
Yes.
For, retirement and that space, and they're looking to put out, let's say, a 4-bedroom house and a detached SQ. What are the figures that they could be looking at? And this is a bungalow for that matter. What are the figures that you can mentally prepare them for such a project, so that when they're embarking on it, they don't start saying, "Ai, apa, this is too much. Acha niende kwa ule mwingine yake alikuanga chini kidogo."
Yes, there are very many factors that we use. When you say a 4-bedroomed, each bedroom
self-contained.
Exactly. 4 meters by 4 meters, 7 meters by whatever. Yes. So you can see we have various methods we use for cost estimates. Before it is designed, we can give something, probably if it is so many square meters, it could be in this region, and if it is so many others, so it becomes area. But if we have had a discussion with the Maniki and he has sketched and we have some quantity, some figures which we can easily calculate, then that one again we use another method which we call approximate quantities. So there are various methods we use to arrive at initial advice to you. And at the same time, it is very difficult to say just a 3-bedroom or a 4-bedroom because, like, if I'm using square area methods to advise you on the estimate, again it will depend on how wide, how big and so on and so forth.
All right.
So but if we were to get, again, what will go into that building, it can be 100 square meters for 2 buildings, but the way you have finished the 2 is different. Again, the cost will be different.
It'll be different.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand the variation therein. Yes. You see, this is why this is a learning process. Let me come to you, engineer, as you add on to that.
Yeah. Now, I'm looking at a developer, a retiring family.
Yes.
That have bought a plot in Rongai or Kitengera, and they want to put up a house. The kids are big. They want
space enough for them to come with their families.
He is saying you want so many bedrooms. You are the one who is saying what you want to spend. But through the guidance of the quantity surveyor, he can tell you if your level of finishes, you want the PVC tiles, you want carpet, you want ceramics, look at so many shillings per square meter. Then start sizing your bedroom, start sizing your kitchen. Then with that total area, the architect will tell you, no, this bedroom is too small or it's too big. Now, with all of us together, you want how many? Self-contained bathrooms?
Yes,
all of them.
All of them.
Yes. And I guess toilet.
The sinks, wash hand basins.
All that, with your mouth controlling us, we can tell you, okay, Banakios, guide us on this one. Where within the ranks of those briefs she's giving, can we put her? He will say,
40,000
per square meter. Put her 45,000 per square meter.
Okay.
Then you go as a family and start drawing it in your head. This house is so many square meters times 45. We need to look for this money. Then you go back to the architect. You adjust space. That is how the proper building industry works.
It's a cycle that keeps going round
yes,
and round,
it is
here
not.
to there, to there,
I
to
saw
there.
Anne's house.
Yes.
Let's build like car. Who was the food bringing?
Okay,
No.
I think let me interject at that particular point. We'll be back to talk about Anne's house. But in the meantime, keep sending your questions. Remember, as basic or as complex as they may be, this is a learning space and we welcome anything that you may be needing addressed. Hashtag still remains to be Good Morning Kenya. Stay with us. We'll be back after this very quick breather.
Be sure, check out for a KDIC sticker in your banking hall. KDIC, protecting your deposits.
Ala! Nissan Serena ndio hii, na unaweza kuwa wewe ndio tunapikia simu. Kodi ya Nissan Serena ni NS, alafu kisha kwenye amount ni 50 bob. Hii Nissan Serena tunakupatia na shilingi 50.
Kujiunga na QuickBid ni rahisi. Enda kwenye M-Pesa, bonyeza paybill kisha weka business number 4032353. Kwenye account weka kodi ya bidhaa unayotaka na bidi yako ya chini zaidi. Kwa mfano TV 16. Kisha weka shilingi 20 tu kama idadi yako. Weka bidi yako pia kwenye www.quickbid.co.ke. Kumbuka, bidi ya chini zaidi ya kipekee ndio hununua. QuickBid, bidhaa bora kwa bei ya chini.
夜风淡吹散沉香，香满青烟上。
Guards! Send her to death row!
Yes! Uncle, please save me! Mu Qingwu is awake! And Yuza has been taken to the palace. Uncle, Father will kill me for everything that I've done later.
在纸上，
I never expected the Chancellor would gather so much gold and jewelry.
与君一别两苍茫。夜风淡吹散沉香，香满青烟上。抓一回当归入药汤，相思泪水。
Quiero amarte de una forma diferente, de otro modo.
Anne, may I tell you something? Only if you don't tell anyone.
I won't tell anybody. It's a secret.
No, what you are telling me is a very serious accusation.
I know. But Eloisa and I firmly believe that it is true.
Now Dad will know that you aren't joking.
Of course I'm not joking. I can't fool around now that there is so much at stake. I have to be firm so that Mauro knows how far I can go. If you...
De una forma diferente, de otro modo, nunca igual al de otra gente.
Welcome back. Just going through some of your feeds, and I appreciate them so far. There's one that has brought up something that we've just talked about with Engineer. I'll be mentioning that once we get to that particular segment of this discussion. But in case you're just joining us, karibu sana. This is still Good Morning Kenya. We are having a conversation about the construction sector in our country, and of course, we welcome you to be part of this using the hashtag Good Morning Kenya. Now, let me come back to you. Let me start with you, Engineer Goro. When you talk about the structural integrity of any building, be it for residential purposes or for commercial purposes for that matter, what are the aspects or factors that you as an engineer deem vital before we even break ground to ensure the integrity of that building will not be compromised at any level or at any point?
Yeah, that's very crucial, because the structural aspect of it will also control the architectural input.
Yes.
How good is the ground, the formation? Where am I going to put these foundations?
How deep you're going to go?
How deep am I going to go? We will find that sometimes we have to go so deep to find stable ground. And that height, the architect might say, let's not dig it out and backfill it. I can use it as a space for the client to do something there. So we have to work together. Before we get too far, we must go and see where that building, be it residential or commercial, is going to be placed.
Yes.
Then we do sample pits. We dig. And we see how far we can go. And also how far we can go between the consultants. We start developing you into the idea of there's ground, you can't do it with the fundis, you need a contractor of this capacity because of maybe of the digging and all those aspects.
Yeah.
So when we come up as a structural engineer, now we've found where we're going to load the whole weight. Then we come up and we look at these spaces the architect is telling us to be used this way. How stable are they? How usable are they? And if you go to high-rise building, after what we call the equivalent of 15 meters tall, the horizontal effect starts to take place in the building. The wind is pushing it very heavily. At that 5th, 6th level, we are not talking about the weight. Now we are talking about the horizontal movement of the building, which is very crucial, and it also varies region to region.
Yes.
The Rift Valley is different from Nairobi, and even in Nairobi, various sectors differ
different.
Because the winds are different. And with that, we go to the other aspect of earthquake. When the earthquake comes, however small, how will it vibrate this building? In Rift Valley, the earthquakes are not to be. Well, there is an earthquake map we use.
Yes.
And we have to put all these issues into play and make sure the architect has his space the way he wants it. And then come to the QS and ask him, will this developer manage? That is why in the industry, there are many things we need to give respect to. Just like we respect a doctor. He talks to you 5 minutes on the way out, the circular, he stops you, tells you, bring 5,000, you don't bargain. But with us, you want to bargain. But we'll go into that later.
We'll come to that in a bit.
Yes.
But let me come to you, Alfred. You know, just from what engineer is saying, just looking at these aspects that are vital to ensure the structural integrity of this building, come what may, whatever environmental factors that may come up in future, which we are not in control of. That brings me to emerging trends that we, the common mwananchi, want to be incorporated into these structures that, from your standing as the quantity surveyor, clearly see are not practical in this particular area or for this particular kind of structure that they want to put up. What would you have to say about that?
That's why we are called a team. Once you come up with the requirements and we discover we feel that what you are suggesting may not work, we discuss as a team. We look at who is what is to be done. You want this one, we discuss with you.
Yes.
We tell you, yes, you want this one to be done, but according to probably the bylaws, it is not possible. Probably you, according to the things you want, it may not be good for neighbors. So it's a whole teamwork. It's an issue of discussing both as a team and with you as the client. We tell you this cannot work, this can work, and then how can we adjust so that we can accommodate your desires without offending the environment and so on and so forth.
All right.
Yeah.
And that also brings me to you, John, just looking at the emerging trends that are in the architectural space, how would you say they are keeping up with the times, and especially looking at these modern structures that we are seeing in this day and time? How are we doing in terms of, as a country, in terms of keeping up with the emerging trends from an architectural standing?
Let me say this.
Fancy buildings, in layman's language.
Fancy buildings,
yes.
I think it's a culture that we have in ourselves. Monkey say, monkey do.
Yeah.
You know, these are buildings that we see in other countries abroad, Dubai's and the States, the UK's. But if you look at the context of having that building here, other than the aesthetics, does it meet other factors? Does it marry well with our climatic factors? Yeah, one. Two, there's some other factors that we consider other than the climatic factors. Yes, they look good. They look so flamboyant. They look nice, flashy. Let's avoid that culture of copy pasting, copying buildings from abroad and planting them here. We can at least, if you tell me you want something like that, I'm sure any architect that you engage will try and localize. Let me say, customize it to the local conditions here,
as close
to as it is, because
possible.
To try as much as possible to marry. There's so many other factors that we need to consider here that needs to be involved and be designed for in a building. Okay. So yeah, it's there, and I appreciate the fact that we have guys who are the developers who have the guts to bring those ideas here and try and plant them into the architect and say, I just want this. But I would also urge the developers, the same developers, let's also listen to the architects as well. We are trained for this so that we can know how to customize your desires locally
to the most practical option that can be available.
Let me add on to what my colleague has said.
Sure.
From what I have gone through, a client came to me and told me, I want you to get me an architect who will give me this design. He had bought that design on this Uhuru Highway. Those people who sell
those
drawings.
booklets, I have seen them.
Yes, so I told him, he was my friend. I told him, yes, it looks nice, but this is a Scandinavian design. You know, those big roofs, a roof that comes there that nearly touches the ground. And the reason why they have those roofs is because of snow.
The weather,
So that when snow comes on, it falls off. So I told him, look, here, yes, it looks nice, but it may not be the best one here because here we don't have snow. Number two, the most expensive thing on this building will be the roof.
I know.
So, because the timber that will be used, the tiles or whatever that will be used will be so huge. And when you go about, so you better think about it. So you find that what he's saying, copy pasting, is very real, and very many of us are really going into that.
Yeah, there's a tweet here that has come in through my DM there asking, or rather it's a comment pointing out the fact that we need to keep up with the trends, as in Dubai, the building that has shifting floors, which keeping up with the trends, but then again the whole practicality bit comes into question. All right, now let's talk a bit about the quality of material that we have in our country, because I feel that is also part of the structural integrity as a whole. And let me start with you, Engineer Goro. Looking at the quality of even the stones, I find that what is put at the foundation is different from what is put on the skeleton. What advises such things, and especially just generally looking at the quality of material that goes into every step of the building?
This is a very practical aspect that most developers have gone through and have come out crying because of not respecting the quality of stone varies from where it comes from. The quality of sand also varies as to where you're going to put it. These materials, given respect, have to be put in specific places. Let's start with natural available material.
Yes.
The stone. The stone you put in the foundation could differ from the stone you put in the open air.
Yeah.
Because in the foundation, there is underground water. It might soften and crumble. So you need a special stone for foundation. On top of the soil, you might need a different stone depending on what the architect and the developer wants the features to look like. And then the thickness of that stone might come into the play of the structural engineer, because you need it to carry the load
This
down.
amount of weight here.
Or if you don't want it, then you have to put columns and beams.
Yes.
Then it comes to the next guy, is the sand. There is a lot of fundis, there's a lot of suppliers that are supplying things they're calling sandy material, which is not applicable because, one, it will not give you the strength required.
Yes.
It gives you a lot of impurities, but the very good available sand is very easily tested. And for anybody who wants to build it, pick a heap of sand, rub it between your hands, shake your hands off. If you are left with the dust, don't use that sand. That's the test.
Simple test.
The test
Yes.
of good quality sand.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
going to try that. I will walk to a random construction site and try that.
Two, leaving the sand, we come to the other aggregates.
Yes.
We call ballast. The size of that ballast, kokoto matters, the size of the pebbles. They have to be mixed with a certain specific ratio so that you can attain a certain strength of that concrete you're doing. Three, come to cement.
Yeah.
There are a lot of cement, fake cement.
Yes.
It is available in document. The good structural cement available in Kenya is only made by 2 companies. And you can find out which companies are these. I'm not here to market anybody.
No. Yes.
All the others are fake. They're used for plastering or mortar or anything like that. But only those 2 can make structural cement. With a good understanding on the ratios of this sand, ballast, cement, you can achieve a lot of strength with your concrete, and you can be able to carry a lot of loading. The architect cannot be able to give you a bedroom of 7 meters by 7 meters.
With a wall-to-wall closet.
So we need to pay attention to this specification. But the fundi, most of the fundis, 90% of the fundis will not tell you, take sand and do like this and it's bad sand. They won't tell you because they want a job, they want to earn new money. Just like in the computer commutation world of matatus. They are good matatus, they are bad matatus.
So there's also
there are
responsibility.
taxis also.
Yeah.
Like from the airport to town at 8 o'clock at night, if you take, what are they called? This registered framework, let's not discuss the name, is about 300 shillings.
Yes.
But if you take the taxi driver at the airport, it's 1,000 bob. So go the former way.
Okay.
Yes.
So you as the client, as the owner of this potential structure, have a lot of responsibility to also
Guide.
due diligence.
Yes.
Is important.
And then we, as a team,
Yes.
we are responsible for the contractor, the implementer, and what it does for you and your money. So the contractor is very crucial and is very, very expensive to you, the developer, if he is not controlled by the professionals.
Okay. Now let me bring in this tweet by Kifuri. I'm saying it as a true Kikuyu. Kifuri. They are saying, we see so many grand structures done by the Chinese in our country, and arguably so, their work seems to be better than what the local professionals have to offer. Full stop. Let me leave it at that point. Let me start with you, John. Just looking at the Chinese effect, as Engineer Goro called it, what do you make of such? the fact that even a common Mwananchi feels that what the Chinese offer in our Kenyan space seems to be of better integrity than what our local professionals have to offer?
How do I dissect that question?
However you choose to.
No,
Let's start with the fact that we have so many Chinese putting up grand projects in our country.
Maybe the way to dissect it is what are they calling local people? Local people are not professionals. Look at local professionals and compare with the Chinese.
Yes. Actually, he's hit it.
Yes.
In a construction, there are two phases. There's a design phase and there's a construction phase. I think what he's talking about is the construction bit of it.
Yes.
I can assure you that all the buildings that you see here are not, what do I say? I don't think there's any Chinese professional involved. Even the law of Kenya does not allow, and you'll guide me, senior here, you will not allow foreign professionals unless they are legally registered to practice. To practice in Kenya.
Okay.
To draw. To draw.
Okay.
So yes, the construction could look like the Chinese. What they're doing is
quote unquote
better than what the locals are doing. But the professional bit of it, I'm 100% sure there's no way it was done by the Chinese. Most of those buildings have been done by local professionals, or they've gone through a local expert before they're implemented on the ground. So if we're talking about the buildings, let's differentiate the two. Are we talking about the design phase, or are we talking about the construction bit of it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe you could specify that if you have the information to help you tell the difference, okay? Now, and also, let me also hear from you, Alfred. You know, just looking at this Chinese effect and this perception that even our viewer has, foreign is better than local.
That's a perception. That's a perception because...
Misguided, misinformed?
Misinformed. Because even when you look at that site for being done by the Chinese, even in the construction bit itself, you'll find that the Chinese are not the ones carrying the stone and placing it there. They're the Kenyans. Yeah, they are the Kenyans. And when you look at even the way things have been placed, it's just the Kenyans. Now, also the Chinese have got a slight advantage in the area of financing. They get a lot of support from their home country. They seem to have an arrangement with their government, their banks, to give them cheap money, and then they are able to bring in a lot of material and put it up quickly, and the things that they have brought from home. So if there are tiles that are brought from home, although tiles are found locally, if everything, they bring a shipload of all those materials cheaply made from their home, and the Kenya government appears not to be taxing them because probably they may have bilateral understanding.
Agreements,
and then, but the Kenyan contractors, you'll find that they are now being taxed, and they have to buy local materials here at a very high level, very expensively. So you find that they start struggling. The Kenyans definitely start struggling because they have to go to the bank, get a loan, a very high interest rate, and they when they delay them paying, they start struggling. For these people, they have brought a full shipload of everything, bang. So you can't compare. It's like comparing oranges and
mangoes.
Yeah.
All right, Engineer Gore, as we bring this segment to a close.
This Chinese factor, like our QS says, they have advantage in a lot of things, both by the blessings of where they come from or their financial institutions, which we are not having here. But they have even more blessings that even the laws in Kenya, they break them and they are allowed to break them by the police. Quote one, I saw a Chinese lorry without a number plate. The driver is a Kenyan, doesn't have a driving license. He doesn't have an identity card. And unfortunately, he hit my car and he was let go by the Kenyan police in Langata. I go back to the public road without paperwork. So they have got a lot of advantage. And with that advantage, you've seen in the social media, like the Cameroon or Korea, somewhere in West Africa, they beat up the local people because the local people have to do what they want. So we Kenyans are actually letting them do. Like that traffic police lady of Langata, why did he let a guy without a driving license drive a very big truck into a public road after having hit another car, and that car unfortunately was mine. And it was not a
and
small
you happen
car.
to know
Yes.
a few things about the law.
So we like importing this material, like the Kira says.
It's cheaper for
How
them.
are they bringing them here? And then the Kenyan is being taxed, the contractor in Kenya has to spend more money than the Chinese. And it seems to look like they can do better. But also, they are not helping share information with Kenyans. I led a team from the Association of Consulting Engineers to visit the construction of this highway on top of Uhuru Highway.
Yeah.
And I asked Kenya, why is your contractor? Because he is not sharing this information with us. Like the case says, there's nothing new here. It's only that they're getting it cheaper, so they're able to hire bigger equipment and do it. But we can do it, but they don't want to share. There's nothing built in Kenya without the local authority having a copy in English. The University of Nairobi was given a free construction, the Confucius Center. They tried to submit drawings in City Hall in Chinese. They tried to bribe City Hall. Unfortunately, I was sitting in the board.
You needed the English copy.
And they had to do it the English way.
Okay.
Yes. So they ask local authority, the arm of the government, is not helping the building industry manage the Chinese factor.
Okay. And loopholes that clearly are
Yeah,
affecting
very
or
obvious.
disadvantaging the local professionals for that matter. Now, we are almost out of time, but as we close this conversation, let me start with you, John. Just looking at the common Mwananchi, where they stand, and helping them understand that you as an architect needs to be allowed to do your job professionally in order to ensure that they get value for their money, as much or as little as it may be.
Sorry?
For the common Mwananchi, to understand the importance of an architect in whatever building they want to or construction they want to venture into.
Yeah. Like Adalia said, the earlier you engage the professionals in your whatever scale of building, even if it's just a latrine,
yes,
the earlier you engage a professional,
as simple or grand as it may be.
as simple or as grand as it is, it will be for the mutual and benefit of you. Planning from the word go. Planning from the word go, it will help you save what you're looking to save when you're trying to do those shortcuts. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Alfred, your advice to our viewers as well, the importance of involving a quantity surveyor, tuache kujiestimate hapa nitachaji simiti 50, lori mbili za mawe, kokoto mbili na changarawe lori 3 zitatosha ama wilbaro 10.
Yes. I think, let me put it this way. When we bring in the issue of, say, the quantity surveyor, after having my colleagues having designed, we come up with what we call the specification of the various materials to be put in that building. Take an example. If you come into the foundations, we specify the mixes in the ratios. If it is the stone that you are talking about, the type of stone to be put in that place. If there are tiles, the particular tiles, if it is an heavy traffic area, we know which type of tiles to put there. If it is even paint, we specify. So the quantity surveyor will specify and come up with a document called bills of quantities, which the quantity surveyor will help you use even going to tender. When you go to tender and you get bids, the quantity surveyor will help you to tell you which contract among these ones is the best. The lowest is not necessarily the best, because he could have made a big mistake and left out something, and we are the ones who can detect the mistake. And the quantity surveyor will be the one who run through the project as it's going through from the beginning to the end financially, advising you how much money to pay at whatever stage. The quantity surveyor in the end will tell you, Madam, you have your building now, you added, adjusted, removed things, the total cost is now this amount of money.
All right. Now, my producers tell me we are completely out of time, but I cannot wind. Forgive me, Mr. Director, before we get to hear Engineer Goro's closing remarks in less than 30 seconds. I don't want to get
Okay, I appreciate the time factor. In the structural aspect of a building, whenever you see a crack, don't telephone it to repair it unless somebody tells you what caused the crack.
Okay.
Thank you.
Simple, short and sweet. Thank you so much, gentlemen. We have been speaking with Engineer Evans Goro. He's a civil and structural engineer. We also have Alfred Aluvala, who is a quantity surveyor, as well as John Mwaneke, who is an architect. As you venture into your structural visions and dreams, be sure to involve professionals to avoid long-term losses, which you could have avoided if you involved a professional from the get-go. Stay with us. We have so much more still coming up after this break.
Be sure, check out for a KDIC sticker in your banking hall. KDIC, protecting your deposits.
Ala! Nissan Serena ndio hii. Na unaweza kuwa wewe ndio tunapikia simu. Kodi ya Nissan Serena ni NS. Alafu kisha kwenye amount ni 50 bob. Hii Nissan Serena tunakupatia na shilingi 50.
Kujiunga na QuickBid ni rahisi. Enda kwenye M-Pesa, bonyeza paybill kisha weka business number 4032353. Kwenye account weka kodi ya bidhaa unayotaka na bidi yako ya chini zaidi. Kwa mfano TV 16. Kisha weka shilingi 20 tu kama idadi yako. Weka bidi yako pia kwenye www.quickbid.co.ke. Kumbuka, bidi ya chini zaidi ya kipekee ndio hununua. QuickBid, bidhaa bora kwa bei ya chini.
Guards! Send her to death row!
Yes! Uncle, please save me! Moochie Woo is awake! And Yuza has been taken to the palace. Uncle, Father will kill me for everything that I've done later.
I never expected the Chancellor would gather so much gold and jewelry.
Quiero amarte de una forma diferente, de otro modo.
And may I tell you something? Only if you don't tell anyone.
I won't tell anybody. It's a secret.
No, what you are telling me is a very serious accusation.
I know, but Eloisa and I firmly believe that it is true.
Now Dad will know that you aren't joking.
Of course I'm not joking. I can't fool around now that there is so much at stake. I have to be firm so that Mauro knows how far I can go.
De una forma diferente, de otro modo, nunca igual al de otra gente.
And we're back. Welcome. This still remains to be Good Morning Kenya. I am Jane Wumboy. We are on to the next segment, and this is all about my ladies. This is Women at the Forefront, where we get to bring you fantastic women who are going beyond the limits and breaking that glass ceiling that society put there, whoever society is, that limits our women and our girls today. So this is for my young girls to encourage you and let you know that, there are women out there that are doing fantastic things, as little or as grand as they may be. They are still championing conversations around women. And today we have the pleasure of having with us Njoki Karaoke. She is the managing director of Karji Industries Limited. Good morning, Njoki.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for making time to be with us today.
Thank you.
Are you on the socials?
Yes.
How can our viewers find you and interact with you?
Facebook. Not so great on Twitter or they call it the gram.
Yeah.
My daughters do that for me, but yes, I am on those.
How can they find you? Do you remember the handle?
At Njoki Karaoke, which is my Twitter handle. Instagram, I don't know.
All right, we'll ask baby girl to find it for you before we get to close this conversation. So before we get to what you are doing now, let's journey back and go back to your younger days. As a kid growing up, how would you characterize your life growing up?
Oh, it was good.
Yeah.
Grew up in Nairobi, born, bred. Went to a girls' school, Catholic. Pretty much very easy, if I can say that. Nothing to write home about, but it was really easy. Then went to college. But before I actually went to college, I went to work. And I worked for Lorno Hotels because my father felt that I needed to learn discipline before going off abroad to college. And I worked for Lorno at Opajeta, which is in Nanyuki, and I spent about 2 years there, 2 to 3 years, and it was possibly the best years of my life.
Was that the dream growing up, or this is something that just came and you're like, oh, okay,
it just happened?
Not so bad.
It was part of my being rebellious.
You had that phase.
Yes. So I was like, okay, well, if I can do it my way. So that's what I did. And I enjoyed it. It was very remote, of course. It was right in the middle of the bush. But I learned how to enjoy my own company, which I'd never done in the city. I also learned that there were very wealthy people, because people used to fly in and fly out, and I never knew people could own a plane.
Culture shock.
Then I went off to the United States to study hotel management, because I was working in a hotel at, of course, for the Lorno Group. And that exposed me to a whole new world. But then I was mature and I was focused.
What are some of those changes that you saw between you studying there and having gotten some bit of the professional bit of the Kenyan space that you feel were integral in your journey and even helping you perform in the spaces that you ventured into after?
I had a child out of wedlock at the age of 24, and that was sort of like a quick wake-up call.
You gotta grow fast.
Very. And I did. But I was also still focused on my school. So I said, okay, fine, you know what? This is the situation. I have to deal with it.
Yes.
But I'm not giving up. And I used to take her to school with me. I'd lay her on the floor as I attend my class. And it was very empowering when I look back now. And that is what actually made me focus later on the girl child. I've since had 2 other daughters. So I'm a mother of 3 children. Yeah, girl power. So it's a very exciting journey, but also very worrying.
I know, being a mother I have a daughter, so trust me, I constantly worry with all these cases that we are seeing of children trafficking, sexual violence against our little children, abductions. It's very worrying. Now, how was that space when you were working there? You were, as you mentioned, working with and studying still with your baby girl, trying to figure out professionally, and eventually you came back to Kenya. But just before you came back home, what was that space like?
Space was it was good because I was focused. Now I have a child. I have to make ends meet. My parents did not know I had a child, which was was scary for me. So eventually when I did inform them, I brought my daughter back home and went back to complete my studies. But I went there with a focus, and I told myself, if I'm going to be employed, I'm going to only do Fortune 500s.
Ooh,
yes.
Goals.
You know, goals.
Like
I set my goals. So by the time I was leaving there, I worked for the mayor of Atlanta, who, in my plan, I was preparing myself to come back to serve my country, to work in the public sector. It didn't happen. But that was, so I set my goals and I knew what I wanted. So I came home and things didn't go as planned.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was the particular reason for coming back home? What drove you back to come back home and leave that space and those opportunities that may have presented themselves there and come back home?
The millennium, 2000.
Wow.
If I did not jump 1999 into 2000 in Kenya, I was never going to come back. And it was a goal because I said, you know, I'm not an American. And I will never be. I don't belong. This is not my home. And I said, if I don't jump it, because of course, you know, making the money there is good, though you work hard.
Yes.
But I said, if I don't jump the millennium in Kenya, I'll never come back, and I need to come back home to serve my own country.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, you're back home, you're in Kenya. Which areas did you venture into?
I was an insurance broker, I was a secretary, I was a receptionist. I did everything because I said I cannot sit at home
and wait
for that grand job. So I did anything that came my way that would make, at least, you know, to be financially empowered, and eventually got a job that was within what I wanted to do, which is event management. So I got a job with an organization called Young Presidents Organization, and I was the chapter administrator in Nairobi, and that now began to open doors. So in 2000, then I worked for Alliance Hotels. So I went back to what I knew best,
industry,
and I did that for about 2 years, which was good. It was fun, it was exciting. They allowed me to take my kids on holiday to the hotels, so it was good. And then in 2005 is when I branched on my own.
All right. Now, at some point, was it in 2005 where you decided to have this shift in your career, or what informed the shift that came along to getting to you where you are even in this time and space, conversations around the girl child?
That came way later. 2005, it was about paying school fees. Three daughters.
What is bringing in money?
What is bringing money? And I was still in a space where it's, you know, bills. So I did that for 10 years. So in 2015, actually before 2014, I met a lady because we were having a conversation about a conference I wanted to organize.
Yes.
Because that's what I was doing then. And she casually mentioned that, oh, you know, I wish there were people manufacturing affordable sanitary pads.
Ding, 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 ding.
I asked her, what is that?
Yeah.
Always is it cheap.
You know?
It's 50 shillings. And she looked at me, she says, Jockey, what world do you live in? And I went back and I was very disturbed. So I went and did my own little Googling. And I realized that I live in a bubble. 50 shillings is 50 shillings to me, it's not to everybody.
Yeah.
So that was greatly disturbing. So I got obsessed for like about 6 months just looking. And so through all that, I stumbled upon a man called Arun. I call him Arun. His name is very long. He's an Indian man. Today he's known as the Pad Man. If you say the Pad Man in India, everybody knows him. There's even a Netflix movie about him. And I got in touch with him, and he told me, I don't Skype, I don't have telephone interviews. If you want to meet me, you have to come to India.
Person. Oh, wow.
I was on the next flight.
You went?
I went.
Okay.
And that was the end. That was the beginning of a new journey, a new chapter in my life. I met him, very humbling, extremely humbling experience. He deals with the poor, and he really inspired me to come and do better.
What are some of those harsh lessons that you learned from this blissful ignorance that you were living in about a pad that could be going for just 50 shillings to you, but for someone else that is breakfast, lunch, dinner. What are some of those lessons that you learned from this experience?
Well, for me right now, it's that we live in an extremely selfish society. Yeah. And I don't know if I can't say it's ignorance, because we read about it, you know about it, but we've become, okay, let me just take you back. I remember growing up, in my home, where you always had relatives from the village come and visit. And it was the norm. And you always knew your father or mother or somebody was being educated somewhere. It was the norm. But there's been a disconnect in my generation. It's about me and my family, and that's it. And what have I achieved in terms of material? So when I look back before I embarked into this journey, is that it's a choice we've made to just ignore and be blind. We live in a poor country. Kenya is not a first world. So the reality is that 60-70% or more live in poverty. So that is disturbing to me, because it took me so long to figure it out. Your maid is coming from the slum, but you don't care to know. So those are the things that really, I don't beat myself up anymore, but I did for a bit.
And when you were presented with it, you still found a reason to argue against it. Now, getting fast forward to a point where you decided to set up your company, Karji Industries Limited. Was this post the trip, and what aspects or what did you actually find on ground when you were trying to venture into putting up this company that would help you achieve this dream and this mission that you had?
So I came back from India and I was sold, and I was going to make affordable sanitary pads, and I did start a factory, and we did start manufacturing, but I think my obsession when I started manufacturing, I kind of achieved what I thought was, this is it.
This is what
I have it.
need.
This is the product. It's tangible. And then I took a back seat because I didn't know how to get it into the market, because I can tell you now, I didn't know then.
You hadn't thought that far ahead?
I was afraid of the market, because it's affordable, which means it's the poor. So how do I break it? I'm not going to go to the slum. No, of course not. So I took a back seat and expected everyone else to do it for me. And I did that, and of course I failed. Then the second thing was that the challenges of the materials, we don't have the materials locally, because we've kind of killed our paper industry. And three is that I actually spoke to Darshan Chandaria, who also sells sanitary pads through Chandaria Industries, and he told me, Jockey, why on earth are you manufacturing? Everybody else is bringing them in already made, because they're tax-free. Now, I'm bringing paper in which is taxable. So how do I compete? You can't compete.
Can't compete with
so it basically, right now I can say my brother told me, you've put it in the back burner. Don't say it's over. So it's on the back burner to be revived later. But it kind of opened this whole new world to me, because as a result of that, I was asked to donate sanitary pads to an organization called YWCA. And when they did, I said, of course, absolutely, I'm happy to do that. And they asked me if I could come and talk to the girls. So I said, where?
Hiya.
They said in Kibera. I said, you better give me a soft landing, because I've never been, and I'm not trying to, go to places that are scary. And they did give me a soft landing, which was school, I forget it now, but it was interesting, and I got curious. So about months later, I called a guy called Fred, who's the founder of an organization called Green Card Organization, and he I asked him, can I come and help and volunteer?
Yes.
And that was the end, or the beginning of the journey that I've taken.
Absolutely. Was that what brought you to putting up the Zuri Dada Sanitary Bank in Kibera?
Yes.
Tell us a bit about that.
So when I started doing my, when I started mentoring and talking to the girls and just kind of getting an idea of what their challenges are, one of the things that really disturbed me was that young girls from the age of 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 were having sex in exchange
Transactional sex, yeah.
for sanitary pads, because that was not even what disturbed me. It was the fact that they wanted to finish school to get out of poverty. So education was the key word there. To get an education to leave poverty. And that's the length a girl will take. And I said, no, it can't be. It can't happen. It can't. So I decided from my own pocket and with my friends, let me set up a sanitary pad bank where any girl who has her menses can come and pick up a packet of sanitary pads.
And these were the ones that you were producing? Or you
I since had put that on the back burner, so I was now buying my own, and with well-wishers and friends who were donating. That's now how we were basically storing our sanitary pad bank.
Okay.
Still is. Still are.
Now, just looking at the fact that you were able to help address one bit of the whole sanitary hygiene management process, what are some of those other challenges that you saw these girls having to go through? Because one, you have been able to some extent, provide as many as you possibly can with sanitary towels, but that's just one part of the menstrual hygiene management process. What are some of those other challenges that you saw that you feel so many people need to come together to fill in these gaps?
Challenges are many. You know, when one lives in poverty, there's challenges are many. So you find many girls are probably in homes that are where they're living with a single parent.
Yeah. They
probably have 4, 5, 6 siblings. They're in a 10 by 10, which is a space this big. They not only have, that is probably even just a small problem. There's a problem of, are we going to eat today? Are we going to have a roof tomorrow? Is my mother working? How are these, there's also school fees. You know, there's one challenge that people don't realize is that, I'll say in Kibera alone, there are about 330 schools in Kibera. Out of the 330 schools, only 4 are public, as in government schools, which means the rest, and I'm talking from kindergarten to vocational, the rest you have to pay. So they're private schools. So you find that not everybody can afford to go to school. And you know, when you tell people who are in middle upper class that, oh, you know, these kids are not going to school or they need sanitary pads, the government provides public schools with sanitary pads.
Yes.
But that's government. They don't provide, of course, the private, because, you know, so the challenge is, there is school fees challenges, so you find girls are out of school or boys are out of school because their parents can't put them in school. Why? Because government schools are also full.
Yeah.
So the challenges are food, education. So when it comes to sanitary pads, it's
just part of the whole chain.
It's a drop in the ocean. Yeah.
Now, also looking at, you know, the fact that COVID-19 happened and it has disrupted everyone on different levels. Looking at what you have seen, and especially how these young girls and disadvantaged girls, for that matter, have been affected, and everyone in the value chain understanding that you can do something in whatever capacity that you are in, how can we help just cushion the challenges that have come along as a result of COVID-19 exacerbating the situation?
So I have a spiritual teacher called Sadhguru. Sadhguru is Indian, and there's a question that was he was asked a question about poverty in India, and this person asked him, we're such a spiritual country, why is it that we have poverty? And he says, well, are you uplifting somebody? Because if you're not, then you're asking me a very foolish question. And it's the same answer I'll give you, is our biggest problem, and I saw it more so during COVID, during last year's lockdown.
Yeah.
We are not uplifting our own. We're expecting these NGOs and these foreign, people to come and be our so-called saviors. And that's where we've gone wrong. We are not uplifting our own. It's a huge challenge.
It's a huge problem.
It's a huge problem, and it's a very sad problem.
Now, as we close this conversation, as we look to stop delegating this responsibility of lifting up our own and understanding that, because many a times we're quick to say, what can I do? Me, I'm struggling to just even have a meal myself. How am I supposed to be able to help the next person? Understanding that help comes in different forms, and we can do something in whatever space that we are in. What will be your message to our viewers today?
Like you said, help comes in different forms. It doesn't have to be monetary. It can be just you going and giving your time. Your time. Talk to the girls. The girls, there are many girls who just want to hear the message of hope. That's it. When they see, they look at us coming from outside, I guess you could say the informal settlement, as hope.
Yeah.
So for them to see us go and take ourselves to them, it's a message of hope. And there'll be that one child who will look at you and just say, I want to be like her. And that's enough.
You've ignited a fire that was laying dormant. All right. Now, due to the constraint of time, we have to close this conversation at that particular point. But we have been speaking with Njoki Karaoke. She is the managing director of Karji Industries Limited. If you would wish to help, I'm sure you can. We will be giving you her social handles on our social media platforms. You can be able to assist in whatever way that you can. Thank you so much for making time to be with us today.
Thank you very much.
All right. Now, we want to bring this segment to a close, but first, tukingojea Monday akuje kwa set, I'm waiting for Victor Olo to come on this side of the studio. But aside from that, you do remember we are still having the IEBC interviews for the commissioner still ongoing. We are almost coming to the end of this whole interview process. They have been running from the 7th of this month, and they are set to end this Friday on the 23rd. Today on the panel, there are going to be 3 interviews, as has been. Today on the panel, we're going to be having Said Hamis Said, also be having Dr. Salim Ndemo, as well as Celestine Anambiku Luku. On the panel, to the journey towards getting an IEBC commissioner. All that will be happening from 9:30, which has already passed, but of course after this programming up until 2 p.m. this afternoon. Vic, upo tayari?
Yes, it's been quite an insightful kind of conversation that we've been having there.
Yes.
Just believe that at the end of the day, a lot's needed to be done.
Yes.
All right. And there's somebody who said during your show with the architects, and said that I think some Kenyans were just making fun out of it, that how much can it cost me to build a kitchen in the village? And you see Kenyans just making fun out of it. But I think they raised a very important question, because you realize that most of the houses, more so in Nairobi, some of the homeowners, some of the the landlords build homes without following the due process,
or involving the professionals,
or involving the professionals. That's why you find that most of the the buildings in Nairobi do collapse. They dilapidate, some of them form some cracks after a particular period, and we've had issues of houses collapsing in Nairobi, some parts of Nairobi, because the law says that when you go to a particular floor, you must have a lift.
Yes.
And some go as high as 8, 9, 10 floors.
Many stairs.
Stairs. So you can imagine in some parts of Nairobi, which I don't want to say, along Outer Ring Road, we all know where that place is. High-rise buildings are coming up without elevators, and that is a health risk for us.
It's a big risk, and even county government buildings collapsing before they are done. All right. Before we get into trouble, we want to close the discussion, but thank you so much for been with us this far. Be sure to join us again tomorrow as we bring the week to a close. I am Jane Wamboi.
And my name is Vic Lowe. Thank you so much for your valid company. See you tomorrow and have a good day. Bye-bye.
Kupata skiza tune ya mambo mema, dial *811*815#.
Mambo mema huwaendea watu wanaosubiri, ila mambo mema zaidi huwaendea watu wanaoyatafuta. Kupata mambo mema ni kufanikiwa, na kufanikiwa ni kutabasamu, kutafakari na kuhesabu mema na baraka ulizozichukulia hatua, ukazitafuta na kuzipata. Amka, tafuta ufanisi wako.
Kupata skiza tune ya mambo mema, dial *811*815#. *811*815#.
Understand the little things that make loving worth. You give me all I need and more, and I love you, girl.
Kwa mchumba wangu tulipendana kama nyama choma, alibahatika kwenda ng'ambo, chuo kikuu kwenda kusoma, miaka 3 kule Japan, kusamea udaktari, sela wapi.
This is where it all began. As the mother of broadcasting in Kenya, you can trust KBC to bring you authentic news and programs to your living room. As KBC, we take pride in our unrivaled heritage as Kenya's trusted national broadcaster. Commanding over 92% digital television signal coverage of our country, 23 radio services that cut across our entire language spectrum, a national, regional and international digital presence backed by the most experienced and top-notch broadcast professionals in the industry.
A very good evening to you.
The new look Kenya Broadcasting Corporation is truly ahead of the pack. Turn to the mother of broadcasting in Kenya for stories that resonate with our identity, our aspirations as a people united in purpose. Real stories of hard work, of passion, of creativity, of big dreams. Stories that cement our nationhood. Stories that bring us together as one. We take pride in our shared heritage and destiny. KBC, informing, educating and entertaining Kenyans as one nation. KBC, Kenya's listening, Kenya's watching.
I've been serving at Defense Staff College for more than 8 years, on and off. But from there I went to South Africa again as a directing staff. It's called exchange directing staff. South Africans send the directing staff over here, and we send also directing staff in to South Africa, which is called the exchange program. I served in South Africa for 2 years. I came back to the Navy, and I served again in operations as a Staff Officer 1 operation in the naval or maritime domain. Staff Officer 1 in maritime operation, you're looking at security, the national security, the security of the sea, of aggression from outside. You're looking at how you're going to secure your territory plus economic exclusive zones, that is 200 nautical miles, with little resources you have. So there's a lot of analysis which is there, and risks involved. Operations also, we look at internal operations also, not only from the outside aggression, but also you're looking at internal aggression, because the military also, in its second role, you're looking at internal security, and its primary role is external security. So in the national security, as you can see, it has two characters. It has an external character and an internal character. Then from there, I became I went to another logistics office where I served. Later on, I was sent back to Defense Staff College to be a trainer again. So I've done a lot of training here and there. From that place, because I had a background of engineering, I was also sent back again. I was sent to Kenya Armed Forces Technical College in Embakasi as a senior instructor, and later on as a chief instructor. We train people over there in certificate and diploma level in avionics, marine engineering, etc. From there then, I was posted to go, and I served over there for over 2 years. Then I went to serve at the Eastern Africa Standby Force. It's an organization, it's a mechanism which does not follow under any regional economic bloc. When you look at other areas like ECOWAS, that mechanism falls under ECOWAS. You look at the northern part of Africa, you find they fall under that regional economic bloc. Even in SADC, this mechanism is the only one in Africa which does not fall under any regional mechanism or economic bloc. Let's take, for example, it doesn't fall under IGAD, it doesn't fall under East African Community, it doesn't fall under Great Lakes region, etc. So it's alone. It's members who contribute over there and contribute also staff. You have the military part of it, then you have a civilian part, then you have the police part. It's a multi-dimensional organization with civilian plus uniform personnel. From there, I also went to National Defense College, which the other day was given a charter which is called now National Defense University. I did the same thing, and there you do the national security and strategy and security course. At the same time, you do also, those ones who qualify, they do the Masters of Arts in International Studies. This one was conducted by University of Nairobi. After finishing there, I went back to Defense Headquarters on training again. I was in charge of training at Defense Headquarters. From there, the last posting I had, I served under ceasefire, transitional security arrangement, monitoring and verification mechanism. This is a mechanism which has been created by IGAD. It is a mechanism which works in South Sudan. after the 2017 conflicts between the government forces and the rebel forces, they sat together and they came up with mechanisms of how they are going to transit from conflict to a peaceful elected government. So this mechanism is one of the mechanisms which monitor whatever they had agreed. I serve over there as the chief of logistics, but also as a principal staff officer of the director of a Citizen, whereby with my background of operations administration, I also helped in operations. You know, it's a multinational mechanism where you get people from IGAD, get people from Djibouti, South Sudan, etc. The language spoken over there is English. Though South Sudan has a population which speak Arabic, but there is also a population which speak English. So even the staff